incredible video this morning of a massive tornado tearing across a field near Dundee, South Africa. Pictures and videos like this one are popping up all over social media sites. No injuries reported here, but several homes were apparently damaged in that storm.
A volcano has erupted on the Cape Verde Islands, forcing hundreds of residents to flee their homes and the local airport to close. It's the first time the volcano on the island of Fogo has erupted since 1995. The archipelago lies around 600 kilometers off the west coast of Africa.
Floods triggered by torrential rain have killed at least 32 people in southern Morocco. Most victims were swept away by swollen rivers, which also submerged cars, buildings and roads.
The resort city of Marrakesh, highly popular with European tourists, has also been affected. Many tour buses have been briefly stranded.
Efforts to escape the floodwaters have been hindered by damage to roads, at least 100 of which are said to have been cut off. Dozens of traditional mud brick homes in the south have been destroyed.
The Interior Ministry said rescue operations saved more than 200 people, dozens of whom were evacuated by Army and Royal Guard helicopters.
Flooding's not uncommon in the mostly arid desert region at this time of year, but the storms of recent days have been described as the worst in decades.
Just an average day hanging out your washing, but then the ground drops away from under your feet. Christina Beaumont from Melbourne was doing just that when she was swallowed up by a huge sinkhole. The mother of 6 fell down into the 3-metre hole and was left floating in a pool of water after the earth collapsed around her. She was trapped for more than 20 minutes before a neighbour heard her screams for help and called the emergency services.
And in southern Japan, huge plumes of smoke and ash were captured on camera by helicopter crews high above Mount Aso. It's erupting for the first time in 22 years, blasting out chunks of magma. Dozens of flights have been canceled because of poor visibility.
The United Nations declares a state of emergency in Gaza City following 2 days of heavy rains and flooding in the war-ravaged Palestinian enclave.
The extreme weather as winter moves in has only intensified the misery of those already in a desperate plight.
The UN says the devastation from the flood has exacerbated the already poor humanitarian situation in Gaza and the aftermath of war.
The French Riviera has been hit by deadly flash floods. 4 people have died, several others are missing as heavy rain lashes the region. There are also reports of a mini tornado that caused a house to collapse and sent tourists running.
Rescue teams turned out in force, looking for people who may have been swept away. Stranded residents were airlifted to safety, many now staying in temporary shelters. But for people at this apartment block, they were forced to remain indoors. All they could do was wait until the water subsides.
Abnormally high temperatures this fall are being blamed for multiple storms hitting the south of France.
These passengers in Siberia had to literally push their plane onto the runway. It was 61 degrees below zero. It was so cold that the plane's tires froze to the runway.
Holidaymakers in the popular Spanish resort of Torremolinos ran for cover as a tornado wreaked havoc across areas of the Costa del Sol. The twister wrecked beach bars, uprooted trees and scattered furniture across streets and beaches, as well as destroying a caravan park.
Brisbane, Australia was lashed by one of the worst storms in decades.
What's being described as a superstorm caused major damage to homes, with roofs being torn off and trees uprooted and falling on cars.
While heavy rain quickly flooded the streets.
Dumped a month's worth of average rainfall in just half an hour.
Hailstones the size of golf balls slammed the city late yesterday, accompanied by wind gusts of up to 140 kilometres per hour. That's equivalent to a Category 2 cyclone. Cars were overturned, windows smashed, trees uprooted, and planes on their sides at Archerfield Airport.
Two men were lucky to escape injury as their car was swallowed by a sinkhole in East China's Fujian province this week.
A series of shakes and booms over the weekend have some people here in Western New York curious.
I was in the kitchen getting ready for dinner.
And then boom.
And then boom, yeah. And it's not the first one I've heard, so it really didn't surprise me.
Here's what happened over the weekend. On Friday night, the U.S. Geological Survey confirmed a 1.7 magnitude earthquake hit south of Lake Erie Beach just before midnight. On Saturday night, between 4:45 and 5:30 in the evening, the Erie County Sheriff's Office got reports of a loud boom in the area of Clarence. Then, about an hour later, a 1.5 magnitude earthquake hit southwest of Lockport at 6:37. A 1.5 magnitude earthquake, also known as a microquake, is not uncommon, but loud booms are. Professor Mark Kastner, the director of the seismograph station at Canisius College, doesn't believe the boom and the earthquakes are connected.
Cold weather has been causing havoc in East and Central Europe. In Serbia, emergency workers risked their lives, according to the electricity company, to mend power cables which had been brought down by high winds and ice up to 20 centimetres thick. Elsewhere in Europe, there's been similar disruption to daily life. In Lower Austria, many schools and roads have been closed for security reasons. People have stayed at home. Ice on tree branches may look pretty, but it can be lethal. Emergency services working to improve safety have had to cope with strong winds.
This is Plettenberg Bay, South Africa, where locals woke up to the strange sight of thousands of mussels washed up on the beach. It's a phenomenon that happens every now and again, and according to scientists, there are a number of reasons why this could occur. Massive beds of mussels can become dislodged if the sea swell is big enough. They also could have been killed off during a red tide or harmful algal bloom, where colonies of algae grow out of control, threatening marine life and seabirds.
We turn now to the rescues this evening. Crippling mudslides, mud 4 feet deep, and the images coming in now from the west. The white SUV there, mud up to the windshield wipers, that family getting out in the nick of the time. And not far from there, this car no match for the powerful rushing water. And up the coast in San Francisco, look at this, a gaping sinkhole 9 feet deep.
The skies opened up over the Bay Area on Wednesday, causing the streets of San Francisco to do the same. The biggest of at least 3 sinkholes measured 30 feet wide and 10 feet deep, breaking a water main underneath.
This is what 3 days of record-breaking rain looks like. A bird's-eye view of Riverside County shows car after car submerged, some up to their windshields in mud.
San Francisco breaking another record today.
Yeah, second day in a row with record-breaking rainfall. Take a look at this chart. Since Sunday, they've had 4.62 inches of rainfall. That's more than all of last year. 2013, 3.38.
And you know, even though the worst of this record-breaking Pacific storm has passed, now the threat of mudslides may last days, weeks, or even longer.
We're digging deeper tonight into a strange sound. The viewers called NBC 10 left hundreds of comments on our Facebook page after hearing a mysterious boom. Now, here's the area that we're talking about. Some heard it in Warwick, others in Coventry, but in West Warwick, they heard it the loudest.
It was around 8:20 p.m. He and others in West Warwick heard and felt the thundering boom. Dalton said he even saw a flash of light first.
And you can see like an orangey yellow light.
Yeah, well, good evening, Gene. We can tell you that we have ruled some things out. National Grid told us no transformer blew. The Rhode Island National Guard says they weren't flying anything in the air last night. I even checked with the West Warwick wastewater treatment facility nearby. They told me they didn't have any issues, which leaves a lot of people still wondering tonight what they heard and felt.
So NBC 10 digs deeper, looking for credible sources. What is fact is that these booming sounds are not tied to seismic activity, according to the U.S. Geologic Survey, but have been taking place over the past few years, not just in Rhode Island, but across parts of the country, too. Speculators on the internet tie the sounds to the migrating point of the North Pole, due magnetic north, that has been shifting.
Making the leap, then, that this is a precursor to a historic pole shift where north becomes south and chaos ensues.
Well, as some theories go, that's happened before many times in Earth's history. But a lot of that speculation is discounted by true scientists that tell NBC 10 much of what's been put out there on the internet is bizarre and not based on real science. Geologic science and engineering students at Brown weigh in.
There are no correlations between Earth's pole reversals of the magnetic field and plate tectonics.
And even if the booms are connected to any upcoming pole shift, there's nothing any one of us can do about it anyhow.
The southeast has again been belted by severe storms, with homes hit by lightning, hail, torrential rain and wind that felled trees.
Commuters heading home are crawling on major roads as the system now threatens holidaymakers on the Bay Islands.
Today was the 8th consecutive day of thunderstorms, which means Sydney's thunderstorm record has been smashed. The previous record, 5 days. By any standard, it's very unusual.
Today was the 8th day in a row of thunderstorms. The average for Sydney is 3 storm days during December. Last year, we only had 1. Our annual total is usually 19 days. So Sydney's had almost half its yearly stormy days in just over a week.
This is what they braced for. Pounding rain, relentless wind, what's left of what was a super typhoon still whipping across this region.
Bringing with it torrential rain and winds of up to 200 kilometres per hour. The heavy downpour has triggered fears of landslides, and the storm has knocked out power and mobile phone signals.
This is Tacloban. The city bore the brunt of a superstorm that left more than 7,000 people dead or missing last year. The Philippine Red Cross said Hagupit has now claimed the lives of at least 27 people, most of whom drowned in floodwaters.
It's being described as a weather bomb that took many by surprise. High winds and huge waves were recorded in many areas. Transport was disrupted and thousands of homes had their power cut off in a storm that struck Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England.
Good evening. No doubt the West desperately needs the rain, but some places got a lot more than they could handle today. The most powerful storm in 5 years flooded roads across Northern California. Parts of Sonoma County got more than 9 inches. At times, the wind reached hurricane strength. On Mount Lincoln, near Lake Tahoe, one gust was clocked at 147 miles an hour.
The wet and windy storm hit most of the west coast from central California north to Washington state, where houses in the town of Washaway Beach were washed away.
This morning, much of San Como Lane is buried under 20 feet of rock and mud. 10 homes destroyed, even more have damage. Nearly a city block full of destruction. Across Los Angeles, Friday was a day of rescues. In the river and on the roads, well over 100 accidents. Rain pelted the city, more during this storm than all of last year.
You would be hard-pressed to find any part of the state that went untouched by this storm. Yes, they need the rain, but they don't want to get that much rain in that short a time because it leads to this.
Devastating weather along America's Pacific coast got worse when a mini tornado added its destructive power to the mix.
A tornado touched down not far from downtown. Damage for blocks, an incredible sight.
2 days of heavy rain in Sao Paulo in Brazil have left parts of the city flooded, taking out power in some neighborhoods and damaging homes and businesses. Many drivers had to abandon their vehicles and some residents were forced to seek shelter. It comes after the region experienced its worst drought in 80 years.
At least 4 people have died in Greece since Saturday as heavy rain battered the northeastern part of the country. Several regions have declared a state of emergency as the downpours showed no sign of stopping. In Romania, constant rain and snow has fallen on the southwest of the country. A red alert ended Wednesday night, but orange codes remain on the Jiu and Teleorman rivers. People in the surrounding county were evacuated from their homes.
37 people are now known to have died in Indonesia after torrential rain triggered a mudslide that destroyed an entire village. Hundreds have been evacuated and scores are still missing.